As a lawyer, you don't need to be the one picking up the phone.
Yeah, exactly.
You could be hiring an intake firm. You can be hiring lower cost labor offshore. You can be doing a ton of things.
Or artificial intelligence.
You could be leveraging AI. I mean, we're not far away from AI being able to pick up the phone and redirect queries.
It's doing it now, which is crazy. And I saw Clio Duo, which we were excited about last year. And I mean, it's a game changer for everybody.
It's a game changer.
For people that are watching or listening, Clio Duo is going to have the opportunity where you have a chatbot essentially to query on your data.
Yeah.
So you log into Clio and you can ask it to do any task that you want, and it learns. I mean, there's a teaching experiment.
Yep.
But that for me is going to revolutionize the efficiency for law firms.
Yeah, it's like having staff built into your LPM, but staff that never get tired, staff that never have a bad day, staff that has a photographic memory, staff that can consume hundreds of pages of documents in seconds. And answer queries about anything that's going on in your practice or your documents. Like it's hard to conceive of the power that unlocks. Wow. And we're just getting started. Like this is V 1.0, and we're seeing an exponential increase in capabilities.
And how do you guys stay abreast with I'm going to take a step back with you because I always like to humanize because our first episode, if you haven't watched the first episode, we did a lot about Jack as like the founder of this company, the struggles. We'll get to some of that where you guys are.
We'll do the YouTube thing. Check out that episode here.
Yeah, we'll click here, like here. There's actually a link to my friend's wiki feed episode. Somebody in the back. No. So one of the things that I love about like Jack is you're a great human being, and I wore my girl dad T-shirt here
because I love it.
This dad rules. So I wore this. One of my kids had like a Little Mermaid themed birthday party, but for you guys, like you got 3 kids.
I do.
Like you are active with them all the time. And I'm fascinated by your ability to run a multi-billion-dollar company and still find time for your wife and kids. How do you do that?
I mean, I couldn't imagine being able to run the multi-billion-dollar company without them, is the way I might kind of twist that in a different perspective where, it's interesting. If I think back to my early days with Clio, you've met Tanya, my wife, amazing woman. We get along amazingly well. But I remember one of the few arguments we've had over the years, debates maybe is a better way of putting it, was when to have kids. And I was starting out Clio. We just turned at about 30, and I think that biological clock people talk about started to go off. And Tanya was like, I think it's time to start a family. And I had just launched Clio. And I was like, look, I'm doing a startup. This thing's going to be hugely demanding. Most startups fail. Like we've got a mortgage. Like we don't need kids on top of that. And Tanya has been unfailing in her support of the Clio journey and in me taking what seemed like a crazy bet on this startup idea back in 2008. But again, when we started talking about having kids, I just felt like it was too high risk a time period. And she made the point, asked me the question like, well, if not now, when? Yeah. When's it ever going to feel like the right time? And I realized she was right. And shortly afterwards, we were pregnant with Ian, our first kid. And Ian's about the same age as Clio now. Ian just he's turning 16 this January, and we launched Clio just a few months before we had Ian.
Did you do that strategically so that he was hockey born in January?
That might have been part of it, but it was really mostly around Clio. But I think you and I are cut from the same cloth in a lot of ways, Bob. But what I found and I didn't anticipate in having kids was they gave me so much energy. Mm-hmm. Like it wasn't this zero-sum game where I was investing time with the kids and then losing time with Clio. Like it was actually spending the time with the kids, being able to disconnect from, and you know what it's like to run a company, to run a startup. It's just, you never stop thinking about it. And I found pretty much the only time I stopped thinking about it was when I was holding my kids.
But this is the point, like the ability when I have to unplug with my kids, I get more creative, envisioned thoughts for the company because I get unplugged from the
totally.
day-to-day.
And you don't realize that's part of the creative process. And I think, especially in the like the early 2010s when I was founding Clio, this hustle culture around startups was a big thing. Like you can't have kids, you can't have a family, you can't get distracted by everything. Everything's got to be the company. And I kind of rejected that in the early days because I just felt like I don't see how that's sustainable. You can't give up everything for the company. But where I think that equation's got it so wrong is it again treats things as a zero-sum game. And one of the most important books I've read over the course of the last decade or so is...
Was it a Dr. Seuss book?
That too. Where Will You Go? One of the best.
Oh, the places you'll go. That's
But the places you'll go, that's right. But Simon Sinek's book about the infinite game.
I like his Leaders Eat Last.
Leaders Eat Last
Oh,
is
so
great. The Why is great. Like, he's just amazing. He's somebody I'd love to get to keynote ClioCon someday. Simon, if you're listening, open invite. But what he talks about in the infinite game is just this idea that most of the games in life, most of the things in life are not zero-sum games. They're actually positive-sum games. And maybe, the idea is it's not a zero-sum game to build a family and build a company alongside each other. Maybe that's actually a positive-sum game. Maybe building a family equips you to build a company better.